as I just mentioned, I think there's a lot of stuff that we do that is work about our work, and it's not exciting. And the times that I feel most rejuvenated and motivated is when I kind of go back to like the childlike self. Like, why am I in this space? Why am I a product marketer? It's because what gives me butterflies is learning something new, communicating that in a really effective way, and then seeing that light bulb go off in the other person.
Hi, I'm Boaz, founder and CEO of Augmented AI Labs, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to have Sanjna Parulekar as our guest. As SVP of Product Marketing at Salesforce, Sanjna brings a unique perspective from one of the world's leading enterprise software companies. With her psychology background and 8 years at Salesforce, she has fascinating insights on how large enterprises are actually adopting AI agents beyond the hype, and what the human side of AI transformation really looks like. If you're interested in understanding where enterprise AI adoption actually stands versus the media narrative, you're not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to Augmented AI Labs, along with the new legal AI platform Clause, for sponsoring this episode. This is going to be a great show, and we're super excited to talk to Sanjna today. Let's get to it. All right, Sanjna, thank you for being on the Shift AI podcast. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So I want to talk a little bit about your background before we start. You've been at Salesforce now for 8 years, but can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you did that led up to all the work that you've been doing in the AI space?
Yes. So I've been here almost 8 years this August. And prior to Salesforce, spent the entire time working at AI startups. So no one was calling it AI then, machine learning, big data, you name it, but was over in, Palo Alto doing the thing, as they say, and really working with, enterprise companies trying to shift their big data strategy and all those foundational technologies that have now become AI, and have worked on our AI tech stack here at Salesforce ever since.
Yeah. Now, did I read somewhere that you had a psychology background as well?
Yes. Psychology.
Tell me about that.
Writing. I mean, honestly, I wanted to become a journalist. I wanted to do like a lot of things that you're doing right now. I mean, I know you have so much in your background, but I wanted to be a journalist, way back when, and then kind of fell in love with just not only studying psychology and writing, but then in a professional capacity, applying that to really complicated concepts and making them simple. I often call myself like an accidental AI marketer. I don't think I knew what I was getting myself into right out of college. And here we are. I mean, the industry's evolved in a way we couldn't have forecasted. So.
It's really interesting to think about it, with your background and, the way that humans are interacting with these tools. It's changed so much in the last couple of years, and I know this year is the year of the agent, or so the media tells us, and I'm really interested to hear your take. You're so close to the enterprise with the work that you do at Salesforce.
Yep.
And the adoption has been mixed, and not as fast as the media has said. And it's not as much of a disaster as they're saying, now 6 months later. And so can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you were imagining was going to happen with adoption, what you've been surprised about, and how you see it playing out so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the truth is always in the middle, right? Things are never as crazy and life-changing overnight as we expect them to be, but they're also not nothing. And I think that, over the last 15 years or so, we've seen so many peaks and valleys when it's come to AI. We've had these super high expectations of the transformations we're going to see, and then nothing really changes. And the most interesting thing to me about when we all got access to ChatGPT, a couple of years ago, is that psychologically, it sort of changed the way that we expect to receive information, to ask for it, to act on it, right? And, building that type of technology, scaling it, it's far from easy. Now, increase that complexity by 1 million and you have enterprise AI. And what has not been surprising is that the companies that are furthest ahead are the companies that have been really, really meticulous about their data strategy over the last several years. They have been, utilizing high volume data stores for a long time. They know what they're capable of. They've been utilizing technologies like we have to use that data and make it actionable within their application layer. They've been doing that, but folks that have tech debt around data are behind, and they're sort of in a frenzy of pilots and deploy the agent here, deploy the agent there, but all roads lead back to data. So that's the unsurprising thing. The surprising thing, I think, is in the way that roles are inadvertently changing. So I'll give you an example. We often say we drink our champagne here at Salesforce, and we've been really, really intentional about using Agentforce as a team at Salesforce. And, one of my favorite examples is the agent on our website. So you go to salesforce.com and there's Agentforce is right there and it's there to help you. And, we were really open to the way our metrics might change. And if you think about it, when someone goes to a website, you think classic marketing, you want them to fill out a form and then someone's going to call them, sales development rep will call them. But why do they fill out a form in the first place? They want more information. But what if you're giving them that information in an agentic experience? They're only going to fill out a form if they're really interested because they really want to talk to somebody. So in terms of metrics, our lead volume went down, but the quality went up. And so that's interesting point number one. Interesting point number two is that, I have a website manager that manages all of our pages for Agentforce. And, he's incredible and he spent his career building websites. And now he spends a lot of his time thinking about that agent on our website and how it pulls which information and how it returns back a result that is actionable on the website to drive a transaction, to drive a conversation that we might have. Without him even knowing it or intending it to, his job is changing. And I think that's super exciting because that's agents going mainstream. That's agents embedded in our business and the people who are working on those platforms changing as a result of them. And I think that is the science fiction in our face, right? It's our jobs changing themselves.
It's really fascinating. And I think that I'm glad that you brought up jobs like that because I think people's roles are changing when it comes to interacting and orchestrating these agents. There was a time where this was really complicated stuff. If you were a data scientist or you were working with machine learning, it took a lot to get these systems to do what you wanted them to do, especially in the age of predictive AI. Now that seems like using natural language to talk to these interfaces is a great start, but it's also much simpler to engage. So can you talk a little bit about that too? I mean, you guys have been so early with agents and talking about agents and implementing them. And when I think about what Salesforce is doing, I think about this layer of orchestration that allows you to engage and really set up these systems in the way that you want them. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's played out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what I often say is that, if you're looking for a place to make an impact with an AI agent, it requires a lot of courage, one, to look at a workflow and say, this isn't working in the way that we're doing it right now. And I think it could work better if we had something autonomously driving action or autonomously doing something. Right? It takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of precision and intention on how to do that, right? And I think that what I love about Salesforce's approach here is that we have action gravity. People often talk about data gravity and where the data lies, and that's important. But data can be moved, data can be virtualized, data can be accessed, right? It is not an immutable property, but where people go to get their work done, much more immutable. That is much more strategic, right? And so you have service teams waking up every day, opening up the Service Cloud console and getting their work done. And if you can analyze that interface and say, what if the work that surfaced to them is different now? They're not just handling reset my password, look up the order number, whatever. All of that is off the plate, and they can actually do work that differentiates the brand, right? So if you're a high-end retail brand, you want the person picking up the phone to spend as little time as possible finding someone's order history and as much time as possible talking to them about the next product that they could buy. If you're an airline, you want every single customer to be an extreme loyalist, right? And so this idea of differentiating on the customer experience and using AI agents and autonomous AI to be an enabler of that, I think is extremely powerful. But it requires, again, like that courage plus intention to change what's not working, and to also really look at how do we make sure the KPIs we care about, whether it's case deflection or CSAT or lead volume or whatever, that all of those are being cared for and handled in a better way as a result of deploying an agent.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you talk about that kind of human experience when it comes to freeing yourself up from a lot of the work that maybe you previously were doing. I find myself on calls now where I really, really appreciate people that take that extra step to be nice and to be,
Right.
thoughtful, to be human with me on a call, where maybe in the past they were struggling to find the information and they just didn't have the energy to do that. So there's definitely that kind of the human side that I think, more and more we're going to value. And one of the things that I know that you're interested in, and I want you to talk a little bit about, is the way that voice plays into this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, we're starting to see a lot of layers of voice and voice interaction be part of these interactions and these systems. Can you talk a little bit about that, about voice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of cool demos out there for voice technology. I mean, impressive. These voice models, whether they are, regional specific. I mean, I was just out in India for a large developer conference a few months ago, and getting some of these demos of what these new models can do. I was just blown away, like hearing all the dialects and this voice model speaking in the dialect of like where my parents are from. Like, it was so cool. So there's the cool factor, right? Big, shiny. How do you make it useful? How do you make sure the things that that voice model is saying are connected to a brand and their brand expression and a workflow that needs to be executed when the customer invokes a certain thing, or that, all those security and, personal identifiable information regulations, all of that are respected in that interaction. And that's much harder, isn't it? Right? So going from cool voice demo to viable enterprise voice solution, so different. And the latter is what we are obsessed with at Salesforce. We've given, folks a peek into our voice strategy at Dreamforce last year. You see a lot more on that coming from us in the coming months. But it is a really exciting modality for agents to be interacting with humans in a really high scale, high volume way. It also introduces a lot of ethical considerations on introducing yourself as, hey, I'm an AI agent, I'm here to help you. It's expectation setting, it's brand, and then it's, of course, all the things I stated of, how does that fit into the overarching solution and architecture, workflows, security posture, integrations, all of that. So I think voice is incredibly exciting if done the right way.
Yeah. I mean, let's stay on the human side of it, because I think that does bring up a lot of issues around how much humans are in the loop in these agentic systems. Yeah. And, right now they are, because of where we happen to be, but it's changing fast. I'm seeing a lot of demos now where the autonomy is starting to work, and it's real. And so when do we kind of bring humans into the process, and how do you guys think about that as these systems get smarter and smarter and the reasoning models get better?
I mean, we see humans and AI as fully together, inextricably linked, very important to go at these jobs to be done together. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, again, beyond a demo, it's really hard to get a full human set of capabilities virtualized in an AI agent, right? And so our posture is that don't try to, right? There is a lot of value to be created when you are really looking at a process, like let's say something super simple, like returning an order, right? Simple, super simple thing. But on the back end can be a nightmare. It depends on what your order management system looks like. Are you storing high volume data about orders in an external data lake? What's your ERP look like? How are you processing inventory? I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. So even though an agent can respond, is it going to give a response worth anything? Or, if you're trying to change a flight from a carrier that's operating with 5 different airlines and you got 2 different reference numbers, pretty hard. Oftentimes you got to get on the phone just for someone to tell you have to get on the phone with someone else so they can go figure it out and talk to someone that knows how to do it. And so, in that way, training an agent is not that different from training a human. And right now, a lot of the AI agents out there are entry-level employees, and we want to get them to be experts, but they're not going to replace the empathy, right? I mean, you take that airline example, and what happens when somebody's talking to an AI voice agent on the phone and says, I had this work flight booked, but I'm going out on bereavement leave. You don't want an AI to handle that. You want a person to handle it. You want empathy in that situation. And in many ways, that empathetic customer experience is a differentiator for you as that brand, right? And so I think that we're, in a funny way, getting back to being more human because we have AI assisting us at every turn. And that is really, I think, the North Star of what we're focused on here.
I want to take a minute and talk about today's sponsor, the Clause AI platform. If you're on a revenue team, you know the frustration. Deals stalling in legal review, contracts sitting in queues, quarter-end crunches that feel chaotic. And if you're in-house legal, you're feeling the pressure from the other side. Business wants deals done yesterday, leadership wants airtight risk management, and your team is already maxed out. Well, here's the thing. This isn't a legal problem or a business problem. It's a collaboration problem, and that's exactly what the Clause AI platform solves. They've built an AI platform specifically for enterprise legal and revenue operations. Contract review, deal acceleration, policy management, workflow optimization. But here's what makes it different. It's designed to bring legal and revenue teams onto the same page, working together. Legal becomes an enabler of speed, not a blocker. And business teams get the velocity they need without cutting corners on risk. So whether you're in legal ops trying to scale your impact, or you're on the revenue side trying to close deals faster without the constant back and forth, check out Clause. Go to clause.to. That's CLAUSE.to and schedule a conversation with their team. Now back to the episode. I like the airline metaphor because there's moments where things happen to me on airlines or if my luggage gets lost, where I really do want to talk to a human. I'm in a certain place where I don't want to talk to an agent, and being able to kind of understand where customers are and then deliver the right approach to them. And there's some times where it's efficient. I've actually recently got on some calls with some banks, and I know it's an agent, I know it's an AI, but I got the answer quickly, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of depends on your mindset as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think just giving that option, right? It all goes back to psychology.
That's right. That's right.
That's a bit this, right? It's like I also think about, our expectations of companies have changed, but our expectations of each other have changed too. I mean, knowing that anybody can open up a chat GPT or something and do a bare minimum of research on you or a project you're working on or something before they talk to you, I'm like, if someone has no context, I'm like, but you had all the tools to have context, and so it's very interesting the way that's made us evolve a bit.
Back to the marketing background, and since you've been doing this a long time and have seen all these cycles, can you speak to the hype? I mean, you're in Silicon Valley. I mean, you're in San Francisco. I mean, that's the epicenter of it all. What's real right now, and kind of be honest about like where we are, right now in the summer of 2025 with all of this, and it's very, very exciting. It's moving very, very fast, but help the audience understand kind of where the hype cycle is.
I think that the hype is around speed and that these things can just work. It's not true. I mean, like anything worth doing in life, it requires hard work and it requires intention and courage. Like I said, it requires all those things. And I go back to that employee metaphor. I mean, these agents, when you first build them, they're interns at best. You got to give them a lot of care and feeding, a lot of the right knowledge. Got to give them some at-bats with the customer to learn. And over time, they'll become, a highly valued employee at scale. But I think that the hype is, people trying to show in some way that this stuff is just easy and can happen overnight. And it's just not true. And it also, AI is not a Band-Aid for a poor data strategy, a poor integration strategy, a poor security posture. It's not going to fix everything. It's a new experience layer, engagement layer for you to deploy for, a certain set of workflows, but it's not going to magically fix things that have been brewing behind the scenes. And so I think that that's a big, big part of the hype. I also just think that, like with any technology change, companies have to be really judicious about how they choose to spend their time on architecting what AI will look like, right? Mentioned I'm in San Francisco, you drive up and down the 101 and every billboard is going to be tech, and it's all going to be AI. The same way if you're in LA, it's like I go to LA to find out which TV shows I should watch by driving. It's like in San Francisco, it's like all you're going to see is AI billboards. But not everything can give you a holistic platform solution, because you know what? A lot of times when I sit down with a customer and they're like, we're really excited about AI agents, and we write down the use case and we go deeper and deeper, I'm like, a predictive model is going to be just fine here. You don't need to do this agent thing.
Or something conventional,
Right, or a workflow is going to be just fine. Or a predictive model and a workflow is what you should do first. And then you should think about agentic AI, because you're going to totally mess up something else. So I think it's never been more important to have a platform behind what you're building with regards to AI. This is not just as simple as let me hook this up to an API and do a thing. That's not going to scale. And why I feel so passionately about our approach is that it is a full platform approach. No one could have foreseen that we would be in the space we are today 5 years ago. Nobody, no matter what they said, nobody could have foreseen that. But our customers were ready because they're already using Salesforce. And we said, hey, you've already built flows on here and predictive models. You could just use those elements to build agents. And they're like, great, we don't have to start from scratch, right? There's nothing worse than that. And so, I think that it's important to think about the platform behind what you're building. It helps you stay centered to reality and away from the hype, and really focused on the user, the customer, and the value.
So let's talk about those big customers. I mean, Salesforce is working with the biggest customers in the world. And even on this podcast, it wasn't until this last season that I really started to talk to big healthcare entities, banking entities, who really started to deploy things. I would say in 2024 and the end of 2023, there was still a lot of pilots. But now I'm really starting to see people with their internal teams start to build things and deploy and operationalize. Are you seeing the same thing? Can you talk about some of the customer conversations that you've had and where the enterprise sits in their how comfortable they are?
We're saying they're comfortable might be taking it a bridge too far. I think everyone is a little uncomfortable right now because, in a sense, each of these large enterprises, including Salesforce, right, in drinking our own champagne, has to be a little bit uncomfortable as we learn how to deploy all of these types of solutions at scale. It's interesting. We just did a launch of the newest release of Agentforce a few weeks ago, Agentforce 3, and we had Goodyear in that event. And, we had their CDO talking about the transformation that they want to go through. And you think Goodyear, tires. I mean, tires, are they going to communicate directly with me? What does that look like? And they want to transform from being, a commodity of hey, you have tires on your car and you don't really think about them, to really proactively supporting the customer and going directly to them. And I think that that's courage. That's the courage I'm talking about, where it's you have all this technology and you have a way you've been doing business for a really long time. What does it look like to totally transform that with agentic AI? And that, like, those are the companies that are really, really making a huge impact. And I even look at our own story, right? I mean, Salesforce, over 80,000 employees, large service organization. And, right as Agentforce was about to be generally available to the world, our CEO said, we need to be using this and it needs to be on our help site. So we said, yes, sir, we're going to put it on our website. He said, great news, it's going to be live for authenticated users, which is like a third of our traffic to our help site. He said, all right, cool, but how about everybody? So we're scared and we're like, oh, I don't know. That might be a bad idea, but I guess we could do that. And he said, I don't want this to just be a chat window. I want it to be the whole help site. And our previous help site was a very long scrolling page, okay? And it was good, not great. It still took you some time to poke around and get some help, and you probably end up picking up the phone. And now the entire thing is an agent. Anyone can go to it right now, help.salesforce.com, and you can ask it pretty human questions. I mean, I used to be a Salesforce admin myself, and I would pick up the phone and say, how do I get started? Like, those are the types of questions I would ask. If you go there yourself right now and you type, how do I get started with Service Cloud for 50 users? It's going to give you a really neat, precise, intentional, multi-step answer that is going to help you answer that question. And since we deployed that, we just hit 1 million cases resolved a couple weeks ago, which is completely crazy. And you look at that example, we didn't just enhance that process, we transformed it. We flipped whatever notion we had of what good looked like on a web page, and we said, let's take a risk. Let's make it all agentic. Now, what this means for our service reps and our service organization is that instead of looking at the time and saying, oh my God, like, time to close this case, I need to rush, they can spend longer time with strategic customers, really building that relationship versus just rushing them out the door to get their case resolved, right? And that is how you differentiate your service organization. And I think that's what some of the best customers are doing. They are completely rethinking the workflow instead of just enhancing it.
I'm so glad that that's where things are going, because that is the way that I want to be able to solve my problems too. I mean, I'm seeing that with documentation of all the software that I use. I'm much more likely to go and just ask questions in natural language and get answers than I am poking around documentation. And that's true for software developers. That's true for product managers. That's true for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is the UX layer that we're probably going to look back on a website where you had to go through menus and think to ourselves, how did we ever find anything?
That was crazy.
How has it shown up for the leadership at Salesforce? Folks like you at your level, and is your job changing? Is the way that you think about interacting with the people that report to you, but also just other people in the organization? How is that changing for you?
Yeah, I think it's the questions that we ask and that we get asked are different. So now my CMO will ask me when we launch something new, well, how does the agent answer these questions based of these new products? What types of questions are people asking the agent about these new products? It's all about the agent. And that's not because, it's a corporate priority. No, it's because it's a strategic part of the way we deliver a customer experience. And we have Agentforce embedded in our events application, on our help site, on our corporate website. It's everywhere. And because it is a functional product in our organization, when I say product, I mean, yes, it's a product we sell, but it is a product on our website. It is something that we all care deeply about. It's like a unifying factor in the way we think about the customer experience. And so that's one. I think it also has made me think more strategically about what my team spends their time on. Now I think about, I asked everyone on my team, I want you to write down all the things you do in your day that you feel like you're not creating. You have meetings about meetings, you're looking for information, you're answering the same question for the 100th time with a different stakeholder. I mean, we're a big company. It is easy to be in meetings about meetings all day if you're not careful. And then in the other column, I wanted them to write, well, what are the moments you're creating? Because I know for myself, I mean, I've been a product marketer my whole career. I am happiest when I'm creating stuff. I'm talking to people, I'm learning, I'm writing things down, I'm simplifying things, I'm creating, right? This is our craft. And everything in column one let's discuss how we can make that easier with an agent or take some things off the list. Because, not to get too philosophical with it, but I think just with the pandemic and everything, we lost all of our corporate boundaries. Like now meetings are starting at God knows what time and God knows how late. And we've just kind of gotten used to that burnout feeling. And again, like this sort of funny, weird consequence of AI is that I think it's actually going to bring us back to equilibrium by taking all of that crazy stuff that we're now used to doing over and over and over again and right size our work a little bit more, which I'm personally thrilled about.
Yeah, that's a kind of optimistic view that I hope plays out as well. And as an entrepreneur, I always, and I have a lot of other entrepreneur friends, we like to live in the genius zone when we can. Oftentimes we're not. We're having to do things that are sucking our energy. Mm-hmm. Imagine in an organization your size, if more people could be living in a genius zone, whatever their superpower happens to be. It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Well, I always like to end the show with the same question. And so I'll give you the question. It's, when you think about the future of work and the future of AI, how would you describe that in 2 words only, but then you can elaborate on those 2 words. So what would your 2 words be?
I think I think work will be more exciting and more intentional.
Okay. Tell me more.
I think exciting because, as I just mentioned, I think there's a lot of stuff that we do that is work about our work, and it's not exciting. And the times that I feel most rejuvenated and motivated is when I kind of go back to like the childlike self. Like, why am I in this space? Why am I a product marketer? It's because what gives me butterflies is learning something new, communicating that in a really effective way, and then seeing that light bulb go off in the other person. And so that's what excites me, and I think in a world of AI, taking all the surrounding stuff that keeps us from that excitement off our plates is really, really great. And that leads into being more intentional. I mean, I think that there are so many psychological downstream effects of being so mired in the work of work that we don't operate with intention always in the way that we can. And you said 2 words and not more than 2, but nested underneath intention is, when you speak with intention, you are more kind, you are more understanding, you can be more empathetic because you got the brain space, right? We only got one of these. And so I'm excited for that, that increase of intention in the way we treat others, the way we work with others. I think it's just going to make for a better world.
I love that you ended on 2 words that were very human. In this world of automation and agents, I think that gets lost sometimes. And so I think that's really powerful to think about how we can augment ourselves and be better humans. So I really appreciate all the psychology and the marketing and the technology conversation that we've had. I appreciate you being on the show. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what Agentforce 4 looks like and all the other kind of machinations that happen into the future. So thank you so much for being on the Shift AI podcast. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Sanjna as our guest on today's episode. Her insights into the reality of enterprise AI adoption and her thoughtful perspective on balancing automation with human connection gives us a grounded view of where we actually are in this AI transformation. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we are grateful to have the show sponsored by Augmented AI Labs and Claws. Our theme music was created by Dave Angel, and the show is produced by Crumpled Ink Media.